What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG here with a long-awaited deck tech. Today we're going to talk about red-black vampires. Well, I did this deck about 4 months ago, give or take a week, when Shadows over Innistrad first came out. But we didn't have the entire deck when Shadows came out. So a lot of new pieces from Eldritch Moon, and they make the deck real, dare I say. I feel like this deck actually has a lot of really good turn sequences and a lot of awesome 2-drops. A lot of stuff going for it. So let me go ahead and hit you with this deck tech. Today I'm going to tell you the cards in the main deck a little quicker than I normally do, so I can go ahead and get to some cool turn sequences that the deck is capable of. I think it's very important to inform you of as well. So let's go ahead and hit the creatures here. There are 24 of them in the main deck. Not a bad mark for aggro to hit, especially a deck that's not trying to run like Collected Company. You know, we can run a few fewer creatures in these decks. Well, let's start with our only 1-drop, and I'll address that in a second. Falconwrath Gorgers, like perfect card for the deck, and we'll play all 4 copies that we can here. I tried out other 1-drops in the deck, Vampire Cutthroat, the new one, and Insolent Neonate, but I didn't feel like either one of them quite fit, especially Cutthroat. I wanted that card to be good, and it's probably still good in the Eldritch decks, but didn't quite fit in this deck. Neonate is very close, and he opens us up to some pretty good turn sequences, but in the end I felt like we could juice the deck a little bit more than just Neonate and play some more impactful cards. But back to Falconwrath Gorger, he opens us up to a ton of really good turn sequences in this deck, but we don't have to play a bunch of 1-drops. This deck is mostly, it turns out, all about 2-drops. We're playing 11 2-drops in all among 3 different creatures here. So let me tell you about all of those at the same time. We're playing 4 copies of Stromkirk Condemned, new card, 4 copies of Furyblade Vampire, also a new card, and it's crazy, and 3 copies of Aire of Falconwrath in the deck. Aire of Falconwrath flies, that's important once you transform it at least, and is still a solid 2-drop. But Condemned and Furyblade Vampire we can get multiple discards out of, and they're both insane. Stromkirk Condemned, it's great that we can get this buff at instant speed and on their turn if we need to, setting up some good madness plays. And then Furyblade Vampire sets up a lot of our most damaging turn 3 plays. Getting a 4-power guy on turn 3 and enabling madness plays is just amazing. So Furyblade Vampire I wanted to sort of put a spotlight on because this card is very good. But so is obviously Condemned. Stromkirk Condemned is just provides a buff to your entire team and fuels madness, and you can do it whenever you want. So, but only once a turn, but on your opponent's turn too if need be. Again, the deck is about 2-drops, so we need as many of those as we can fit in. And a 4th Aire of Falconwrath is not out of the question, but I don't know that the deck needs it. On to the 3-drops here. We're obviously going to play 3 copies of Olivia. And honestly, I feel like we could push it to 4 copies, but right now, this particular list is pretty tight. I'm not really sure what I'd bump for it. But 3 copies of Olivia is still fine. We don't really want to run into the legend rules, so 3 is good. And, you know, you don't really have to talk much about what the card does. It's just integral to the deck, obviously. 3-mana, 3/3 flyer, fantastic stats, and sets up good plays for us. So you'll note that's what a lot of these cards do. A lot of synergy in the deck, because it's all about setting up good turn 3 and 4 plays. We're playing 2 copies of Drana in the deck, and Drana does synergize with a few things we're doing, but she doesn't have madness herself. She doesn't enable madness or anything. So I feel like just 2 copies is probably where we want to be with her, although her buff is relatively important. Not as important as it was for the first Vampires deck when Shadows came out, because now we have Condemned, that gives a buff to everybody, and we can play 4 of that. But Drana's still pretty important, and there's tricks with her. You know, if you have a Gorger and an Olivia out on turn 4, let's just say, then you can discard, let's say for Furyblade, or any of our 2-drops. You can discard this, and go ahead and play her with the Gorger's ability, get a +1/+1 counter on her, she gains haste, and she can go ahead and swing in that turn. Surprise Drana is amazing, just letting you know. And don't forget that she has first strike, so her damage goes through first, and then all your guys get buffed, and then they deal their damage. That can be really important. We fit in 2 copies of Stromkirk Occultist in the deck, just really draws cards in the exact way the deck wants to draw cards. We are playing Bloodhall Priest, which is a card that cares if we have no cards in our hand. So Occultist is really nice because it allows us to keep no cards in our hand but still effectively draw a card. It's also amazing that it has the madness. We need a creature that we can madness in for 2. This really fills that spot very well. So again, I wouldn't mind playing like 3 copies of Occultist, but I'm not really sure exactly what to bump here. But Occultist has been a solid creature, not an incredible creature, but a very solid creature. And the most important thing about it is that we can play it for just the 2 mana with madness. Also note that it has trample, as does Furyblade Vampire, and a lot of our creatures have flying, so we've got a lot of different ways of smashing in combat damage in the deck. To finish off the creatures, we're going to play 2 copies of Bloodhall Priest, which was a 4 of, but wasn't as important as I originally thought it was going to be. Still good though, still good. We can play it for a madness cost of just 3. Is really good with Olivia, by the way. One of the best interactions in the deck is when, because Olivia, we can get both the enter the battlefield trigger and the attacks trigger off of this in the same turn. Either taking out 2 creatures or hitting them, 2 to the face, kill a guy, or 4 to the face plus swings. Like, really good interaction between this and Olivia. But in the end, just didn't prove as important as I thought it was going to be. Again, we're trying to play as fast as possible. We want to fit a bunch of plays into the same turn. This isn't necessarily conducive to that, although it does give us sort of the reach that we need to close the game out sometimes. Let's move on to the spells. There's 13 of them in the deck. That leaves us room for 23 lands. We'll start with 2 copies of Lightning Axe right here. Lightning Axe is pretty darned important just for the 1 mana. It's instant speed, and it can take out most creatures in the whole format. I mean, like 90% of the creatures in the format, including Sylvan Advocates that have gotten big. We really don't want to get to that point in the game. We want to finish it out before then. But just in case we get there, this can take that out. So it takes out a lot of huge guys at instant speed and provides a madness outlet, which can just be super important and, again, lead to big plays on turn 3 and 4. We're playing 4 copies of Distemper of the Blood in the deck. This card is fantastic. Like, seriously, I can't tell you, this card is amazing. A lot of our plays on turn 3 and 4 that I keep talking about involve Distemper of the Blood, and it does a lot of things. Not only does it obviously provide 2 extra damage for just the 1 mana, the important thing here is that it's a madness card that just takes the 1 mana. We only have this and Fiery Temper as far as that's concerned. Alms the Vein is in the board, but Alms the Vein didn't perform very well in the main deck against a lot of things. So it's in the board just in case we have to go incredibly fast and we're more at liberty to hit the face. But with this right here, we just need another 1 mana madness thing. It's really important to have that. And the fact that it's a buff that we can basically play at instant speed, even though it's a sorcery, is really, really important on blocks and things. Things like, say, Fury Blade Vampire. Even if you give it the buff, it's still only got the 2 toughness, so they can chump block it with nearly any creature in like mono white aggro and still trade with it. They'll take a couple of damage because trample, but they'll still be able to pull off a trade. Now, after blocks, we can discard something to say Stromkirk Condemned, for instance, and go ahead and play this, and that will keep our vampire alive, our Fury Blade Vampire, and give it a buff, and more damage will spill over. So that's an important play to remember. Just on blocks, discarding something and playing Distemper on a creature is very, very important for keeping your guys alive and dealing a little bit more damage. We're playing 4 copies of Fiery Temper in the deck, the other thing that we can just play for the 1 mana if we madness it. This is great. I mean, it's 3 to the face if that's what we want to do to go really, really fast, or clear a path for our dudes. So Fiery Temper, definitely 100% a playset no-brainer. And we'll finish the main deck with 3 copies of Avacyn's Judgment here. Avacyn's Judgment is good for clearing the board, even if you don't play it with Madness. You can clear the board of tokens, or maybe 2 1-drops in white aggro. You can take out a Gossip Monger before it swings, or before it flips, and a Kithion, for instance. Just all kinds of stuff that we can do with this, and we'll often 2-for-1 them with a Judgment in this format. So I really like Judgment, and I also like it on turn 4 or even 5 as something that can, kill that guy and hit you for 1, something like that. It can also hit Planeswalkers. That's really, really important. Same thing with Fiery Temper. Hitting Planeswalkers will be important in this format, not only because of green-white tokens, but because of a lot of other decks. So really like a lot of things about Judgment. It's a bit slower than I'd like it to be when we play it for Madness, but it makes up for being really flexible. We can play it without Madness and kill a couple of guys, or kill a guy, hit them in the face, whatever we want to do. So really, really flexible card, and can help us finish out the game if we have enough mana. 23 lands in the deck right here, and it's not too hard to build this mana base. Just play all the duels, and then play some basics. Altogether, we get 16 red sources, 15 black sources. We're playing a lot more red cards in the deck, but we have a lot of double black costs, and some we have to get on turn 2. So I think and post sideboards we'll be playing a lot of black cards too. So it's important to have a lot of black sources, definitely. But pretty easy mana base to build, and here it is. Here's our super important board right here, and I do feel like there's a lot of spots on the board that are flexible. But one of them is not Duress. Duress is incredibly important and can actually be in the main deck. It's just the 1 mana, and the deck wants to stretch its mana as much as possible. So just playing Duress either on turn 1 or even turn 3 alongside a 2-drop isn't so bad. We get Collected Companies out of their hand, Planeswalkers, we get Languish out of their hand, any other removal. So Duress has been pretty darn good out of the board, and I can see making main deck room for it, maybe taking out Lightning Axe. Lightning Axe is the only thing in the main deck I feel like is definitely flex. Although I really have liked Lightning Axe in the deck. But if you wanted to, maybe Duress could go in instead. I just feel like it's a very, very important card. Alchemist Greeting has been important against creatures that are a little bit bigger, and decks that play more creatures. And you see that we have a few things for that. Fiery Impulse is in the deck. And then Kalitas is just in case we're against in matches where we're going to go longer. So Kalitas can get very, very big with all of our vampires. And he's got the lifelink. That helps a lot too. So we're spread out pretty well. Oh, and I have to mention Virulent Plague. Virulent Plague, very incredibly obviously good against all the tokens builds in the format and can really just win us the game. Now, before I move into the power rankings, I'm going to discuss a couple of turn sequences like I was talking about earlier. These are just like 3 is what I think. Yeah, I'm just going to do 3 turn sequences that the deck is capable of, but this will give you a good idea of what the deck is capable of because it's going to cover a lot of different things that the deck can do, and then you can sort of freestyle from there because the deck is capable of a lot of stuff on turn 3 and 4. Let's say it's turn 3, you have a Fury Blade and a Gorger out. You move to combat and discard Condemned to the Fury Blade, then you play it with Gorger's ability. You swing in with the Gorger and the Fury Blade. After blocks, you can discard Distemper of the Blood to Condemned and pump either one of your attacking creatures, but also give them both +1/+1 until end of turn. Now, this sequence does 10 damage on turn 3, but alternatively, you could, instead of discarding Distemper, you discard Fiery Temper to the Condemned before blocks to blow away a creature and clear a path, or if your opponent has no creatures, you can hit them with the Fiery Temper, and that will cause this sequence to deal 11 total damage. Here's another one. Let's say it's turn 3 again. You have Gorger and a Fury Blade again. And although I've used Fury Blade twice, you could use any 2-drop this turn and still pull off this sequence. You move to combat, you discard Olivia to the Fury Blade, and you play it with Gorger's ability. At this point, you can either swing or not. It doesn't matter. That's one of the good things about our 2-drops. If it's not advantageous to swing, you don't have to. And on turn 4, you can move to combat and discard Condemned to the Fury Blade. Now, when Condemned enters the battlefield, that'll trigger Olivia. So discard Fiery Temper and play it for Madness. And don't forget to put the +1/+1 counter on Condemned. At this point, swing with everything. We still have a mana open, so we can discard Distemper the Blood to the Condemned, buffing something with Distemper and solving any problematic blocks, and giving all of our vampires +1/+1. And all in all, not counting the fiery damage, we've just dealt 18 damage on turn 4. Here's one more that doesn't require Falconwrath Gorger to work out. Let's say it's turn 3 and we have an Aire of Falconwrath, but again, we can do this with any of our 2-drops. Let's say we discard a Fiery Temper to transform the Aire, and then play Lightning Axe, discarding Distemper of the Blood. Now, we can take out with Lightning Axe and Fiery Temper, we can take out probably their entire board at this point in the game, or we can hit them in the face with a Temper and kill a guy with Lightning Axe. However you want to do it, very flexible there. We can swing 5 flying on a probably empty board in this case. But if we hit the Fiery Temper to the face, then we've actually dealt 8 damage this turn, and that's on turn 3. And those are just some of the good turn sequences available to us. Like I said, once you know a few of these, you can just sort of freestyle the rest. There's a lot of different directions and branches that the deck can go down to really make just like crazy plays, especially by turn 4. Really trying to close the game out, and it's awesome when we get to go first because we can get to close the game out before they even get to something like Collected Company or Languish. So deck is really good when it comes to being fast. But here are your power rankings right here. Final score of 68, which is pushing it. That's a pretty good score, but it's mostly because of our speed and our offense, you know. We're a little lacking in the defense department, which is, you know, the deck's fine. It's an aggro deck. It doesn't care that much. But we are playing a bunch of removal pieces for an aggro deck. We're playing Judgment. We're playing Fiery Temper, you know. We're playing Lightning Axe. So we're playing a few removal pieces, and that's good, especially Avacyn's Judgment, against all these decks that are super low to the ground right now, like White, X, Aggro, and Bant Company, and Tokens. So really good having a spot of removal, especially post boards against those decks. That said, the deck can be blown out by mass removal like Radiant Flames or Languish or Kozilek's Return, but Radiant Flames and Languish will rotate in late September, and we won't have to worry about them anymore, but we will still have to worry about Kozilek's Return, and it'll probably see a little bit more play in the upcoming format. I would be willing to bet. But in a couple of months, a couple of big mass removal pieces will rotate out, and maybe we won't see another one come in, who knows? The deck may be even better then. Overall, right now, even with pre-order prices, which are, you know, routinely high, the deck will cost you only about $65 to build on TCG Player, which I found amazing, by the way. Olivia is still the most, you know, the biggest thing in the deck, and Drana is still relatively expensive too. They're about the same. And they are really what's going to cost you the most. I was surprised this deck didn't cost at least $100. So you're getting a lot of value, and what I score pretty highly, to be honest, mostly because of raw speed. I'm not really sure it's going to be like the pro deck or anything, but it is maybe the fastest deck in the format and has tricks against the other aggro decks too. So time will tell, but I'm a big fan so far from what I've seen in this deck. That's all we've got for today. Bunch more deck techs. It's now deck tech season for the channel. So a lot of those coming up. I'm going to have the top 10 deck techs that we're going to do soon. I always do that video whenever deck tech season starts. And the next deck I'm going to do is another super anticipated one, Blue-White Spirits. I'm still working on it right now, but Blue-White Tempo, Blue-White Spirits, whatever you call it, is looking pretty stupid solid. So stay tuned for that and sub for it if you want all the content we'll do after that. And like this content if you enjoyed this content, or the Ziggy, whatever you want to do. And we will see you guys next time. I'm Dev from SBMTG. This is Sleepy Ziggy, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, my wizards.